we want to start with Week 18. There was a quick little Pro Bowl news as well. I always kind of forget when these get announced. So I always feel like it's after the season. It's like, oh yeah, it happens right here in Week 18. Pro Bowl rosters have been announced. Do you have any thoughts? Any biggest snubs on them? For me, I saw Mahomes didn't make it, but I kind of get why, especially how the AFC is. I mean, have you guys looked at the quarterbacks in the AFC? It's going to be a battle for 10 years about just getting Pro Bowl nominations. I didn't really have some main thoughts. I saw, Jordan Brooks didn't make linebacker, but it's the Pro Bowl. And once we get to all pro teams, which we might mention next week, we'll do awards voting as well next week. But any thoughts on the Pro Bowl? No, yeah, me either. So let's get into it. It's fan voting. It is. I know. I'd say all pro teams are more exciting for me to determine. And we should also, this is my little thing I want to stand on the podium for. Stand on the podium? Stand on my soapbox for. We should make all pro teams three teams instead of two. If the NBA can do 3 teams, we can do 3 teams for the NFL with 32 teams out there. Just want to throw that out there as well. But the main event of Week 18, the main event of the NFC, the last game of the regular season in the NFL, is the Vikings travel to Ford Field in Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are 3-point home favorites, so like a slight favorite if you consider the home field edge and everything. This is also going to be, by default, our Haas fight of the week. Let's go ahead and start us off. A little gong to get us going. How about this game, Chuck? Feeling good about it? I'm pretty excited about it.
Dude, I was, for the first time in my life last week, I was rooting for the referees in the Packers-Vikings game to rig that for Minnesota to win. Because, if they had lost that game and you still... And the Lions had won, against San Francisco, this week would have nothing. Nothing. There wouldn't be anything here except like the Bengals fighting to just see if they can win a game and hope the Broncos lose a game. But since they both won, we get down to the end of the season. It's for the number 1 seed, a bye week, for everything. I mean, I cannot imagine a game that the Detroit Lions need to win more than this game on Sunday, because just when you start looking at some of the guys that have been put on injury reserve this season, Carlton Davis, Ennis Rakestraw, Aiden Hutchinson, Lee McNeil, Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, that's 4 defensive linemen right there. Alex Anzalone, who's coming back this week. So I mean, dude, you're decimated up front, which is obviously going to change the dynamic for this game. But I'm just happy that we have these stakes. Because usually, like you said at the start of the show, at this point in the NFL season, there's a lot of teams like jostling back and forth. You have a bunch of teams like maybe on that last week trying to get into like the 6 and 7 seeds. But this year, there's more team jostling for the number 1 pick than there are for those playoff spots. So, it's funny when you look at the standings, it kind of looks like if you've ever simmed a Madden season and you're like, oh, come on, there's 10 teams with 11 wins. Yeah, actually, there might be this year. There might be this year.
I know. It feels like expansion 90s NBA, like when the Bulls, tore it up, and won all those games when whatever it won, 72 games where they win. But that actually feels like that work, because then they expanded with all these teams, the Grizzlies, the Raptors, all these teams in the 90s. And so those teams stunk. And then all the other teams that were really good just tore them up, especially in the NBA, where you have to add 15 new guys on each team. So this is what it reminds me of, even though there's no expansion, that there's a lot of teams with a lot of wins, not, a few teams with a lot of wins, and there's just a lot of bad going on at the bottom. Like, it's just the haves and the have-nots going on in the NFL. I'm so used to the parity where a team doesn't make the playoffs at 9-8, or the team is picking top 10, they're they have 7 wins or something of that sort. But I think we were talking about the 49ers earlier this week, and I pleaded for them to just be normal this offseason, and they have, I think, they have 6 wins right now, and they're picking 11. They're not even in the top 10.
No,
that's crazy to me. They're not even in the top 10 and how their season's been going.
I just added up real quick. Depending on how this weekend ends up, we could get 15 teams with 10 or more wins to close the regular season. Yeah, because we're at 11 right now, and the Seahawks, Broncos, Texans, and Bucks are all sitting at 9 wins. So
Which three of those could easily do that. I know wow. That's a great stat. I know. I wish I could just look it up. I know you could just go hand crank it and look each one, but it does. A lot of people have noticed how many bad teams there are this season. And on the flip side, 10-win teams like you just did. But you mentioned injuries. Let's start with that side of the ball. The Vikings offense, Lions defense, because that's where a lot of injuries have happened for the Lions, like you mentioned. Alex Anzalone, I looked this up right before. The Lions said that he is back from IR. At least they opened the window. So they haven't practiced as we're recording this right now. So not sure how Thursday goes, but that's huge for this Lions defense. I'll start off with a stat that I was kind of looking at because that's where I've been feeling these injuries with the Lions defense is the linebacker room. They're losing Rodriguez, losing Anzalone. They get Melifonwu back at safety, which is interesting. I'll talk about that in a sec.
But I have breaking news. Alex Anzalone did practice today.
Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that timing right there. But yeah, so Anzalone got hurt originally in week 9. Rodriguez got hurt in week 10. We had mentioned this a few times throughout the season. The Lions love being in base defense, which means 3 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen, 4 defensive backs. And it's not everyone. A lot of teams run base defense, don't get me wrong, but it's usually a minority compared to nickel or dime that teams have been running into more. So it stood out a lot that the Lions were not only running it against like light bodies on the offense, but thriving in it. So I started looking at some stats though, because watching this Lions defense the last few weeks, I was like, this doesn't feel right. And then that makes a lot of sense with these injuries. Running the ball or running defense, Lions defense, still very good against the run. They still have this guy named DJ Reader, who is a good player. They have a lot of downhill players. Jack Campbell is good against the run at linebacker. So they still have size in the front 7, but hold on to your hat defending the pass when they get into this base defense. And this all matters because the Vikings will run 21 or 12 personnel, which means 2 receivers or fewer, about half the time on early downs. They are, where were they? 10th lowest rate of 11 personnel on early downs. So that means 10th highest rate of being in base offense. So, okay, it all tied us all together. We're deep diving into this, by the way. Stone said, has texted me before. He goes, producer Stone said, we're going Titan submarine deep dive on this, on this game. So the Lions defense, okay, since week 11. So when these linebackers injuries happen, have allowed a explosive passing play 22% of the time when they're in base defense. That is horrendous. That is ridiculously high. They have allowed 3.2 yards per carry. So they're still very good against the run, but they've been just getting shredded in the passing game. And I really felt that. I was watching the Bears game, watching that Bears offense. Oh boy, can't wait to talk about that in a few weeks. But watching that game, I could just see them running bootleg after bootleg after bootleg on them and getting them. And watching the 49ers run bootleg or run play action. And that really stood out to me because those linebackers were not getting involved in the game. They were moving every way, going every which way, going the wrong way, defending poorly against the play action stuff. So I really want to see if the Vikings take advantage of this. So, okay, this was the stat I looked up. So since week 15, more of these linebacker injuries, but the Lions have allowed the most yards against play action in the entire NFL, the most yards per attempt, their 4th highest EPA per dropback allowed, and the second highest success rate allowed. Offenses, when they run play action, are succeeding 68% of the time against this Lions defense. You know who likes play action? The Vikings. You know who likes bootlegs? The Vikings. So this is a little thing here.
You see it in practice every day. How are you better at that?
Especially like the Lions offense. Oh, yeah, because going into Lions offense. I know it's the same stuff too. It's same actions and everything. I know. But when they get their big boys out there, this has been something that teams are be able to poke at. Even when they're in base defense, they have a 46% defensive success rate allowed. That means 54% offensive success rate allowed passing. So like you can gash them. And this matters for not all teams, but the Vikings can get into these 2 receiver looks, and especially with TJ Hawkinson back, who didn't play the first time. This is a nice, clean path for this Vikings team. So I kind of wanted to start there. That there's some easy answers here with the Vikings, especially with this Lions defense kind of figuring out their way with all their injuries.
Yeah, week 13 is also kind of where I started. Mostly because the one thing I remember while I was watching that game before the horrific Matt Eberflus timeout. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on NFL coaches not knowing what the hell is going on with timeouts right now. But
including your coach.
Yeah, I know. The Falcons read it. It's kind of wants a one and done. It's neither here nor there. I didn't say I'm just a messenger. But we got some bad timeout usage going on in the league right now. But in the lead up to that moment, I remember watching it. I was like, the Bears kind of look like a real offense.
Yeah,
that's not good.
It wasn't terrible.
Yeah. I was like, but if you're the Lions, that's not good. So I, just since that game, just pulled up some stats for the Lions defense. 30-second EPA per drive, which is they're actually allowing over one expected point per drive since week 13, which is insane. 30-second EPA per play, 30-second EPA per dropback, 31st success rate, 31st in explosive play rate, 31st in points per drive at an even 3 points per drive. And I think one of the most interesting things that when I was looking at it, what we talked about last week, where the Vikings against the Packers, they flipped what they do. They played more zone than they did man. Lions don't do that. Like, they're still spamming man coverage. They've played man coverage. Still the second highest rate in the league since week 13, 42%. I think that was interesting because in that same time frame, the Vikings have seen man coverage on 12% of their plays, which makes sense. Got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison out there. But where this gets scary to me is
of that.
Yeah, right. Most teams are scared of that. But if you're going to keep doing this, you don't have the same weaponry you did the first time that this game happened. You're going to get torched at some point. Maybe you can force Sam into a mistake or get him on a strip sack or something. But Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison will win if whether you do man or zone. But if you're going to spam man, I just feel like this is a scary part for the Lions defense, a trap for the Lions defense to fall into, because I understand not wanting to switch up what you've been doing to get you here. But man, go to Our Lads and look up just the Lions DB room. And you tell me if these are guys that you want without Carlton Davis, without Ennis Rakestraw. I know Terry Arnold's a solid player, but we're asking a lot from him here to go out and handle this in man coverage basically by himself, because the other guys, I don't think they're just up to the challenge for this week. So I would like to see them just mix in some more zone looks, give your guys some help, because if you just leave them on the island, it's going to be a really, really bad day for you.
It's funny you brought up the man zone stats or bringing up the man point, because obviously when you're talking about the Lions, that's what's kind of just been funny, is that they've just been daring teams. You kind of know what you're getting when you play the Lions. They have some funky blitzes and everything, but personnel and coverage wise, it's kind of the same every week, and they just have been winning. And then the injuries kind of cropped in, and then it was like, oh, okay, this is, they caught up. I was kind of looking at the same stuff. Was they dared them. Well, I remember the first time we previewed this game, their first matchup, I was like, are you really going to run man coverage against Justin Jefferson? And they did. And it was like half the time. It stunned me. And Darnold went 10-14 for 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick against man coverage in their first matchup. What's been interesting to me is the Lions got Melifonwu back, the safety, and getting him back has now moved Brian Branch back to the slot. And I don't know if that's been a totally good thing when they're in man coverage. When they're in zone on early downs and they're in light bodies, it's been good because Branch is such a good blitzer and they can do some funky things. But when they go man coverage, he's kind of getting beat on it. And Roman Dunze got him a couple times from the slot. I've been kind of tweeting my Roman Dunze power slot propaganda, but he was going against Branch on these snaps. And so that kind of like slot man coverage thing, I was kind of really wanted to look at it. Sam Darnold, first time they played, 12 of 13 on passes to the slot for 190 yards and 1 touchdown. 48% of his pass attempts went to the slot. That's double his season rate. And that makes sense. In man coverage, if you're not blitzing, there's a hole player, either a robber, which is a safety, or a hole, which is a linebacker, or a rat, if you want to call it that. Because the help is in the middle, everybody coverage-wise plays on the outside leverage, because you have help on the inside. So like you'd see in Dunze getting Branch, they're running over routes. So it's just a natural beater is that you're working away from the outside leverage. You know who's good from the slot? This guy named Justin Jefferson, who got pigeonholed actually as a slot guy coming out of college.
I remember that,
which still drove me insane. But he could do this. He can honestly be the league's best power slot if he was there full time. He's 12th in yards per route run from the slot, 13th in explosive receptions from the slot. They like putting him in the slot against man coverage. They do a bunch of stuff to get him there, and when they know it's man, and you're going against Darnold, who has shredded it. But the Lions are 26th in dropback success rate against slot targets. They've allowed the most yards in the NFL against slot targets, second most pass attempts, fifth most EPA, yada, yada, yada. I just feel like these are natural answers for these Vikings to attack. I think they're going to be chucking it. I think they said, yeah, okay, you have had these injuries. There are going to be a lot of movement, a lot of moving parts. I feel like a lot of jet sweep kind of action. And then I think just a lot of attacking over the middle with Jefferson and Addison, and Hawkinson coming back is huge too. Again, they didn't have that the first time. So if you're going to go man coverage, then the safety, who might be Melifonwu, might be someone else, because they like to have Joseph as the deep guy. Melifonwu on Hawkinson. All right, we'll see how that matchup goes. Addison against another corner. How does that matchup go? So I think they're just going to have more answers this time around, the Vikings. And then the last thing I would mention is the Vikings bench had Ed Ingram playing the first time, who was the worst right guard in the NFL. And now he's so bad, man. He should be just gone. He's not even worth having as a backup. And then they put in Dalton Risner, who's about above average, but that helps a lot. But then the first matchup, they had Christian Darrisaw. He's out. Now they have Cam Robinson at left tackle, who's allowing literally the highest pressure rate in one-on-one blocks of any starting offensive lineman in the entire NFL. Would have been nice to have Hutchinson, but I guess you can find a way. But there's things that these Lions team could pick at that I think is just going to be really interesting. Anything else on this side of the ball?
I went back and watched some run clips from the first game on both sides. Mostly because I don't even know how many guys from Detroit's defensive line that were there in the first game are even here for this one. Right.
No.
And because obviously Hutch isn't here, Lee McNeil isn't here. They were even like I said before, they were depending on even guys like John Kaminsky, who has started to develop, and they had signed Marcus Davenport, who's trying to hopefully be a splash. None of those guys are in for this game, but the run game they had in the first. For the Vikings run game. And I guess it was kind of true for both sides. But for the Vikings, they finished with positive EPA on the ground. But most of that was from the first carry of the game. Aaron Jones had a 34-yard touchdown. Yeah. Outside of that, the success rate for the day was 29% on the ground. And on the flip side, for the Lions, kind of same thing. They had negative EPA, like a 26% success rate, but Jahmyr Gibbs had a 45-yard rush that kind of, breaks things open for you. So I feel like if you're the Vikings, maybe you just try to pound it early on, and then, if you can get play action shots with Justin Jefferson on some of these CBs, it just feels like, due to injuries, obviously, but you just have a lot more options in this game if you're Minnesota than maybe you did last time.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to summarize this side. To wrap that up, is they have better options this time. And that makes sense with having a little healthier, Hawkinson and everything, and figuring out their run game a little bit more. So I think that's a good way to put it. It actually surprised me a little bit that the Lions' run defense has kind of held up. They were one of the better ones overall, but still pretty good against the run. It's just that, I don't know. There's some real easy answers for the Vikings to find. Easy for me to say, sitting here in my office in Vegas and not having to worry about game planning it at all. But I do think they just have better, also you're going to dare to run all that man coverage again. You do it the one time, they're like, oh, okay, all right. I don't know. It's just, I'm curious, if Aaron Glenn's going to throw some out there, and he might. He's always been good throwing blitzes out here when he knows he's kind of outmanned. Last year in the playoffs, I thought he was really good at that with the Lions defense. Their first matchup.
Might as well just throw some new out. No one's going to blame you for this. We all know what the deal is. So just
can't just stand there and get punched in the face.
Yeah, give it a try.
Yeah. I mean, the last time they blitzed Darnold, he went 12-15, 143 yards, had a touchdown, had a pick and 3 sacks against the blitz last time. I think that's what they lean into. I think it's a very aggressive game plan from the Lions, and they're going to turn it into a gash or be gashed. They're going to hit 5. We'll let them get 5 explosive plays, but we're going to try and get 2 picks. We're going to try and get a strip sack. I think that's the plan to go down. Again, my job's not on the line. I think Aaron Glenn's going to be very happy this offseason anyways, but I do think that that's the path that they should go down. But flipping sides of the ball, and you kind of hinted at this, Lions offense, Vikings defense. And I think this one's pretty interesting. Just kind of, I mean, obviously, you got two very good units. You got a good unit that blitzes a bunch. You got a unit that's good against the blitz. But Charles, where did your eyes kind of go first when you're looking at this side of the ball?
Well, the first thing I did, I was just like, man, thank God that this offense is still intact, because like at least
Yes.
you have the firepower. I mean, we've seen it a handful of times already in the past few weeks. You're giving up a lot of points, but you're giving it right back as you give it up. So at least like they're still in a spot where they can throw the punches needed. And I think even like the Buffalo game was important because, you know, one thing that I've always that we've seen sometimes from this style of offense and some of these quarterbacks that play in this offense is when you get down, it just gets over quick because you're not always used to coming back. But I mean, they were able to push their way back into that Buffalo game at least. So the offense is still running. I still use the same, like since week 13 parameters for this. Since then, the Lions are averaging 3.46 points per drive.
Anything over 3 is elite. So
right,
it's like,
right.
yeah.
So, and I didn't look to see it was one, but I'd have to assume it's Buffalo because
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Or Ravens, maybe. Yeah.
right. And I think for this game, I know like they didn't have great, you know, in terms of success rate, they didn't have a great game in the first time that they played these teams, but I feel like you just got to go at it again. And just try to pick up some explosives. On first and second down over the past 5 games, the Vikings defense is 30th in success rate.
Yeah. I was looking at the same stats. Yeah.
It's pretty
stark.
They're 29th in success rate since week 13 on rushing success rate on first and second down. So like if you're even with David Montgomery out, that should still feel like something that you can win. And I think where this gets really interesting is when you start putting like the play action stuff on top of it, because I didn't realize that that even the Vikings had seen so much play action in the league, even though it makes sense. So the Lions, they've run the most massive play action this year, obviously. The Vikings have seen the third most. The Lions are first in EPA per dropback and play action. The Vikings are second in EPA per dropback and defending play action. Lions are first in dropback success rate and play action. The Vikings defense is third.
That's fun.
However, there's a little caveat here. The one area that the Vikings defense has been, it's funny because like all their EPA and success rate numbers are really high against play action, but they're really low in explosive play rate. So I guess like the only time that they really get got versus play action, you're off to the races. And we know that this Lions offense can create big plays. That's how they want to make big plays. So I think the run game, if you can get into good, like down and distances and you can run play action, like you should still be able to score and at least give your defense a chance to not feel so bad about giving up 40 points at the end of this one.
No, that's a great point because that's, I mean, Vikings are very, blitz happy. And I'll talk about that even more in a second. I was very curious in their first matchup, but that's, if you block, like the best thing that can happen for an offensive team is on first down or second down, we run a heavy play action with a nice wadded up protection and you blitz against it and we pick it up. That's a gash. Like if we
pick Texas that up, won that game.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because it's even if you have Surtain and frickin' Ramsey, Prime Ramsey out there, or Revis Island out there, it is so hard for those guys to hold up for longer than 2.5, 3 seconds. Like, especially with play action routes are usually deep and big routes. It's just physics unless you guess the right route or, jump the route or anything like that. So it makes a lot of sense that if you block it up, you can get them like with an explosive pass. I was looking at some of the Viking splits and I kind of went down the same wormhole you did or rabbit hole. Ivan Pace, their linebacker, was hurt. He got hurt in the middle of week 11, I believe it was. At least that's where my splits were. So I should write this down. I am writing about this freaking thing for Yahoo this week. But from it was really stark to me too, is that I pictured them as a really good rushing defense. And since week 12, and Pace is back, I should mention this. He was back last week. Same things that you looked up, but they're 32nd in stuff rate, meaning basically an explosive defensive run, zero or negative yard gain. And 32nd of that, which is really curious to me, and I think pace does help that, but it made sense because they were going a bunch of dime with Metellus as a linebacker, essentially. And
fake position.
You know what you can do when defenses go dime? Just run it down their freaking throat. That's what you do when teams want to dare that. So I'm curious if pace makes that big difference, because I mean, the before and after, it's crazy. They were second in they were first in early down rushing success rate allowed from weeks 1 to 11. Weeks 12 onward, they're 30th. So same stat you were looking up. All those numbers, 19th, and they average 6.9 yards to go allowed on third down from weeks 12 onward. That's 19th in the NFL. Weeks 1 through 11, they were first at 8.63. That's almost 2 yards difference. And that matters a lot when you have a defense like this that wants to get funky on third down or do some crazy things. But having said all that, I got 2 little things here that I think are very interesting. So their first matchup, and I was really picturing the blitz stuff. So Goff torched the blitz in their first matchup. He went 14 to 15 for 159 yards, 1 touchdown. He took 1 sack. So 16 blitzes because he ain't scrambling, which I'll talk about in a sec too. Only one of those blitzes, so 15 out of the 16 blitzes came on first and second down. Only one blitz came on third down, and it was 3rd and 2, which is technically a rundown. That's a short yardage down. That is crazy to me. Like, that's kind of not crazy, but that was a very specific game plan that the Vikings had. And remember when we watched the Lions Bucks at the beginning of the year, and the Bucks kind of got after the Lions? And they're like blitzing them. And I think that's what they took it from. They're like, hey, if we blitz them early downs, we can catch them. And then the Lions kind of caught them. Again, 14 to 15, 159 yards, 1 touchdown. That's getting caught. But I asked our guy, Keegan Abdu from Next Gen Stats about this, and he looked it up. So since 2016, that is the 7th highest early down blitzes to late down blitzes ratio in any game from any NFL team. And that one blitz again on third down was on 3rd and 2, which is a rundown. So that was just a curious game plan choice to me, because Goff against the blitz this year is 2nd in EPA per dropback against the blitz. He's 2nd in success rate against the blitz. Are they going to try that again? I wouldn't, because they definitely got you shredded last time.
Yeah.
And then, so I went into the other. So NFL situations are very specific. If you hear Charles and I talk about this a lot of time, early downs, late downs, red zone, backed up, all these 2-minute, all these types of things, because it's very specific. So I started pulling out a little thread here. I just mentioned 3rd and 1 and 2 is short yardage. That's its own kind of world. 3rd and 3 plus, or 3rd and 3 to 6 is medium. 3rd and 7 to 10 is 3rd and long. 3rd and 11 plus is 3rd and extra long. But if you say 3rd and 3 plus, so any passing down on 3rd and 4th down, I was kind of like, what would the Vikings do? Why are they doing this? What might they do this year? The Vikings have run 2-man at the highest rate on 3rd and 3 plus, so true 3rd down passing down, in Next Gen Stats' history. The highest rate of 2-man by any NFL team ever that we can track, at least. So that's in the last 8 years. That is just curious to me. I was like, why are you doing this? And when you go against a quarterback like Jared Goff, they didn't do this once in their first matchup. Against Jordan Love last week, they did it about 1/5 of the time. Against Geno Smith the week before that, they did it about 1/5 of the time. Goff, you would do it against because he's not scrambling. That's how you beat 2-man. It's hero throws or the quarterback scrambling. Now, I don't have to worry about Goff scrambling. That's not how he wins. They ran more man coverage against the Packers last week, doing 2-man and normal 1-man. Do we see more of that? Like, that's something I'm just really curious about, because Goff against 2-man, not great. 36% success rate since 2022, 30th among qualifying quarterbacks out of 41 qualifying quarterbacks. He's only scrambled once against 2-man and went for 5 yards on 3rd and 15. he has 40 dropbacks. He's been sacked 3 times. He's only 17 to 32 against 2-man. So almost barely 50%. We know how hyper efficient Goff is and how accurate he is. So he has 40 dropbacks against 2-man since 2022. 17 and 32, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 3 sacks. Only 11 first downs. I bet we see a whole bunch of 2-man. And not a lot of teams are running 2-man these days. And the Vikings, it's jumped up from 2% 2-man in these situations to nearly 15%, 14.8%, and 21% since week 10. This is their new changeup. is 2-man. And I can just see them continuing to do this in this week. And I just thought it was a fun little quirk. So 3rd and 3+, look out for that 2-man stuff, from this Vikings team. The thing is, though, is the Lions can also pound the freaking rock against 2-man. So that's the other thing to get them out of 2-man. So that's the Lions do have an option to use against this 2-man look.
Yeah, it might have been the Bills game that we were previewing where the Lions were like almost 3 yards before contact on 2 high coverages or 2 high shells. And I really do think that like that to me is one of the most interesting parts about like how these two teams are built, because I think over the past, I guess like this time frame that we've been talking about where the Vikings defense has, shown a little weakness. Like this is what I was kind of concerned about at the start of the season. And I don't mean this like in a disrespectful way, but it's kind of like the island of misfit toys that they have to stick with like, a holiday season reference where these aren't, most of these guys like aren't really like guys you would consider superstars. Like we're talking about how like their defensive line has kind of fall apart in terms of just like early down run success rate. I mean, yeah, because like you're throwing out like Harrison Phillips and other guys out there. We're talking about Josh Metellus because I remember I think it was before the season when he was tweeting at our friend Keegan about his blitz numbers and where he was designated as a player, where he felt like what position he felt like he was playing versus what position Next Gen Stats had him playing. And that goes for not just him, but other guys up front. Like, I think at a certain point, like having all these guys who don't necessarily have like a true home at one position can get you, and especially against a team like the Lions, because at some point, like, they can have moments where we're just like, no, we're just going to get behind our offensive line and just move anyone who comes out the way if this is getting a little too sticky. Because, I like, the idea of like Penei Sewell getting up to the second level and there's Josh Metellus waiting for him. Like that's to me where the Vikings defense just has some personnel problems where it's almost like too hybrid to a degree, like in terms of personnel. So maybe you come back next offseason, you get like a true 3 technique, someone who can really just stick there in the nose, and that will even make life easier for everyone else. But for a team like Detroit, I still think that with the personnel they have up front, this is still a defense that they can score a lot of points against. Again, because they scored the first time too.
I know. I have no like real issues with the Lions offense. So, you know what I mean? I'm like, kind of like, oh no, they're going to figure it out. Like, other than what you said, maybe a bad game script, but I feel better about how they are this year than they were last year with it. Jameson Williams has come on. Sam Laporta is still a fine option. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, you don't want to get Jahmyr Gibbs caught, or a linebacker caught on Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, he's going to shred him. Literally one of the most explosive skill guys in the league. It's funny you say that though. Like, all these guys, oh, everybody's everywhere. Oh, chaos. Everybody has a tell. Everybody has a tendency. When it's week 4, you only have a couple games to go off of. Week 8, we got a few more games. But guess what? In week 8, I'm only looking at these games. I can't sit here and break down 8 games as a coach. I don't know. When you get to week 18 and you're battling for the number 1 seed, I'm going to take the time to look at all these games. Especially if we can get a bye week next week, I can take a deep breath. We get into the playoffs. Oh, I'm going to break down every single game. This is why Steve Spagnuolo is so freaking good and Andy Reid are so good, is they are the best at looking at whole regular season tendencies and breaking them, or breaking the other team's stuff. That's why kind of sometimes, oh, this funkiness, this guy's here, this guy. All right, well, what if, I'm just making one up. What if Andrew Van Ginkel, every time he's lined up over the tight end, does this? What if every time Dallas Turner's on the field, he does this? What if every time Jerry Tillery is lined up here, but like that, every team has a tell. It's just, it takes some effort to find it. Some are a lot easier. Gus Bradley, I can tell you exactly what they're doing as soon as they line up in the front. The Vikings defense, they dropped from the line of scrimmage more than anybody, literally more than anybody in Next Gen Stats record. But over time, again, you can start figuring out that stuff. So it is fun to talk about, like, kind of sometimes you need a to just overcome the tendencies and tells. And Belichick always used to have a gigantic nose tackle for this Patriots type defense. That's what the Vikings
need, man. That's what they need.
There's a reason he used to always have a big old dude, like, because he's doing all the other stuff. Like, that was the guy that held it up and held it steady and everything. So I do think that's maybe an option to go down this offseason. Whew. Any special teams previews? No, I'm kidding. All right, now what's your prediction for this game?
I think the Vikings win. I think they close out the game. And man, what a season to get the number 1 seed. Your rookie quarterback who you thought was going to run the offense for you all season ends up getting hurt, and you're 1 game away from the number 1 seed at the end of a 15-2 season. That's crazy. But I do think they get it done. I just don't like the idea of this line secondary against Jefferson and Addison. I mean, it's not just that the Lions are banged up. I mean, these guys are playing out of their freaking minds right now.
Yeah,
Justin Jefferson's on a different planet. I mean, the catch he had against the Packers that didn't get didn't count. Yes, snatched it behind his head in stride.
It's one of the best catches you'll ever see in your life, and we already forgot about it. Like it is,
but he makes it look so easy. Like just snatched it behind his head, tucked it, turned upfield. I was like, "What the hell planet are you from?" I think the Vikings win this.
In the 4-minute drill that the Vikings iced the game, or they threw the ball 3 times with Darnold, which is also a huge thing. That's how much they trust Darnold right now. Like, yeah, we'll chuck it with you. They ran a bootleg, and Jefferson's running the over route. And this Justin Jefferson is a football genius. Not only top of his athletic gifts and his hand-eye coordination and everything, he is a savant as a route runner and understanding how to play the position. He's running the over route, and there's a corner trailing him, and the guy did a good job actually on it. And he comes down on the over route. His stems downwards to stay friendly to the quarterback. What that is doing is you're preventing an undercut. And I have seen Pro Bowl, all pro receivers never do that in their career. And they get away with it because of other reasons. But for Jefferson to, in the heat of that moment on a huge play that really, I would say, if I was looking at how that play was breaking down, 85% of the time, that's an incomplete pass to me. But because he stemmed downwards and made himself QB friendly, it turned into like a 6-7 yard gain. Then they got to third manageable and they got the first down. And I was like, God, you just do everything right.
Everything.
Good blocker, good in the red zone, good underneath, good on the sidelines, good from the slot, good deep. Like, what can't you do? He's freaking awesome. So yeah, I feel like no matter how my prediction is for this game, I'm going to get it wrong. But I'm also going to go with the Vikings. But God, the Lions need this. They need that deep breath for that bye week. I mean, both teams would love this, especially in the NFC. But I am going to go with the Vikings. They're a hot team right now, but I do think this is going to be a very exciting game, but obviously, and I think both offenses are going to bring it. So
I don't know why, but that Justin Jefferson tangent just at the end, it maybe it reminded me of when the Vikings were going to play the 49ers earlier this year, and someone asked Justin Jefferson, you watched them defend Garrett Wilson last week, and he said respectfully, I'm not Garrett Wilson. It's true. It's just true.
It's so true. But like, that's the best type of confidence. Because you said like, hey, I am aware of how good I am, but I'm not a about it. That I love. And God, watching him practice, that dude practices hard. He's an indie. I mean, I've been to a couple of training camps there. How he's with the PR team, how he does that kind of stuff, community stuff. Like he's just one of these guys. I love Justin Jefferson, but do you think the Lions have some options too? I don't want to just make this Vikings one-sided and purple shaded, but I do think this is going to be a great game, and both teams will be making the playoffs deservedly. We are going to take our first break as we come up for air from this game, from the Sunday Night Football tilt, and we're going to get into the rest of this Week 18 slate.
Introducing Daily Draw, the latest free-to-play game from Yahoo Sports. Daily Draw gives you a pack of 6 prediction cards every day based on the day's biggest sporting event. Download or update the Yahoo Sports app on the Apple App Store or Google Play and join the action with Daily Draw today.
We are back. We're coming up for air. We're going to do one thing on the rest of these games because, they're more kind of just about seeding. Maybe some things can happen. I don't know how interesting. I mean, they're interesting. It's NFL games. Of course, they're interesting. You can make them interesting, especially if you have some money. But we're going to start. We just went NFC North. We're going AFC North. Bengals at Steelers. Steelers are 1.5 home underdogs. The Bengals are rolling. They're scoring on everybody. They can only make the playoffs if they win. Broncos lose against the Chiefs backups, and the Dolphins lose. Steelers can win the AFC North. If they win, the Ravens lose. They have some seeding stuff as well. I wrote it down because I'm a loser. If they
still
win,
the North title, right?
Yeah, if they win, the Ravens lose. They win the AFC North title. If they win, they lock in the 5 seed. If they lose and Chargers beat Raiders, they have the 6 seed, and then they would play the Ravens again, which is kind of fun. Yeah, I do think that's fun. If they win, Ravens win, they're the 5 seed. They play the Texans, which also I think will be an interesting matchup. But we'll cross that bridge once the wild card starts. What you watching in this game? I just what you got here? Because for me, it was I got one thing that I'm going to look at. But what you watching for Bengals Steelers in this kind of AFC North consolation prize?
Again, I'm here for the Burrow Chase Higgins fireworks show. I would imagine they go off again this weekend. I mean, it's kind of like what we were talking about, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Like those 3 guys are just so dialed in right now, and like they know they have to be dialed in because not only are they trying to save the season, this could be the last time all 3 of them are playing together this weekend, which is crazy.
Call it the last ride.
It could be. If Mike Brown don't pay Tee Higgins for these 3, it could be the last ride, which is crazy. Because go look at the Bengals cap situation for next year. They can afford it if they want to do it. They can afford it. But I guess I just want to see them do that again. And on the flip side for the Steelers, like Bengals defense is so soft up front, and we know they want to run the ball. So if you can't run because they did score 45 on them the first time they played. So I mean there's space there to score. I just don't know if I feel like if you just gave the ball to Jaylen Warren 30 times this game, you might get somewhere. But I don't know about this Najee Harris thing and where they're at and how many carries you're going to give them. But there's still a chance that they could have some success against the Bengals on the ground, which is obviously what they need to get Russ and Pickens going on the deep shot. So I don't think the Steelers win. I think the Bengals just score too much and pull it out this time. But there's still an avenue there as long as the Bengals defense is in the state.
I don't know if you know this. Najee Harris, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. I'm sure his success rate's about 30% on those, but he got those 1,000 yards. I kind of looked at. I looked more. I know what the Bengals offense is going to do. I think everybody knows what they do. That's what's probably so frustrating for defensive coaches. It's like, all right, they're going to run another high-low here. There's Tee Higgins catching it for 16 yards on a dig. Okay. Now they're going to run. Okay, a corner out or corner post. No. Okay, there's a corner out just going for 22 yards. Oh, okay. Now we got him. We're closing on Chase. Oh, there's a go ball going over our heads for another touchdown. Oh, okay. Mike Gesicki, don't have to worry about him. Oh, there's another 15-yard gain to Mike Gesicki. It's just they Burrow is always one page ahead. The other side, yeah, the Bengals is Lou Anarumo. I just talked about game planning as the season goes along. Lou Anarumo have one of his magical game plans. He has had some really good stuff in the playoffs and maybe in some of these more key matchups. Don't think he has the horses that he did in the previous years, but maybe this is a against the wall game. I think it is. It's a playoff game for him. It's a loser leaves town match for them. So I'm just curious what Anarumo's got on third down. I think Russell Wilson's been really funny on third down this year. His air yards to sticks. So how far he pushes the ball past the sticks on third down, 4.4 yards average air yards. That's second furthest in the NFL, only behind Anthony Richardson. It's so like, if you watch them on third down, it's just go ball city. So how can your corners hold up against George Pickens, on go ball after go ball after go ball? That's what they test. They've been pretty good at it this year. But yeah, I'm curious how much the Steelers just poke at this defensive line, this front seven, until they pop and just keep running it and keep running, control the game. Don't let Burrow get the ball. That's how they have to do it. So this is more just a morbid curiosity game for me. that's kind of how I'm going to put it. I think a few of these games are predictions. Steelers are 1.5 point underdogs.
I think the Bengals win because they just have to. You got to keep going, got to keep scratching, got to keep fighting.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Bengals because they need it real bad. Yeah. I think Bengals take this one. All right. We're going to go to another game. This one is with your team. This is the Falcons at the Panthers. This is Michael Penix's playoff game, basically. Just how you predicted the season, right? Week 18, Michael Penix must win. That's exactly what I predicted.
Falcons turned to a rookie quarterback with 3 games left of the season. Need to win all 3 to
storm in.
What are you guys doing? Oh,
man. Yeah, Falcons win, the South with a win, and the Bucs loss. What are you watching in this game?
I mean, I look, we just spent almost 40 minutes on Vikings-Lions. I don't need to see one of those teams going to Atlanta in the wild card round and just laying the absolute wood to them, because that would be an absolute demolition in a dome, like against a rookie quarterback. Defense is like fake good right now. That would be bad. So at least I probably won't have to watch that unless the Saints just do something absolutely insane this weekend and take down Tampa Bay. But I guess all I'm really watching for this week is I just want to see, this last bit of Michael Penix we'll see before the offseason starts. Last week was up and down for him. I think like if you look at those last two plays that he had in regulation, it's a perfect encapsulation of where he's at right now, because
a little snapshot.
I think on the third down, it was Drake who was, they were running like
Drake London.
A corner route, Drake London, and Drake was open, like certainly NFL open, just sailed it from clean pocket too. Then the next play, Kyle Pitts, like on the goal line, gotta have just missile down the middle of the field. When he threw that ball, I was like, oh my God, why? And then it just ended up right where it had to be on the goal line.
Couldn't drop it. It pinned on him. Yeah. Yep. No, that's perfect. I don't have much to add there. That's a good way to put it. That's how Penix's game felt. Some bad misses, but then a couple brilliant throws. And I still don't know how I feel about him. I wasn't the highest guy on him in the draft, but
we'll see. He did land in a decent spot for himself, though.
Yes,
there's a lot worse spots to land in.
Well, him in London, I mean, he's going to give London a chance at the ball like 15 times. I mean, sometimes he'll go 10 yards over his head, but he's going to give him at least a chance on the ball. So I think at least he's exciting. Like, at least he tries some throwing the ball, and I like that at least.
Right. I mean, look, it's been entertaining, like just watching him cork up to throw, and that goes flying. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm interested to find out. I'm very interested to find out. The only other thing I had in this game was there's been a lot of talk about Bryce Young since he's returned to the starting role due to, Andy Dalton's got to be pissed about that car accident. Damn, like I only hurt my thumb and I lost my job like forever. Okay, yeah, that's how it works sometimes. But I do still feel like as much as Bryce Young has improved, and he definitely is better than he was earlier this season and last season, we're still grading this on a curve. Like since week 8, they're 27th in dropback success rate, 20th in EPA per dropback though. So that's almost
third down blitz beaters. That's what it is.
That's a huge improvement from where they were. So
yes,
we'll see what happens. The Falcons defense has been, what I write down, 7th in success rate since Bryce Young starting. So it's since week 8. So I guess, if the Falcons want to have any prayer to get to the playoffs, I'm not sure you want that prayer, then you got to get past, one of the worst teams in the league. So
it's the Falcons.
Don't be embarrassed, man.
Yeah, well, my first note is that don't be embarrassing, I suppose. I think that was my first note on all of this.
Call a timeout.
That's brutal, man. Because the one going in the half, it's like, okay, it's going in the half, or you got a little cute there, but then doing it again in the same game, that was bad. That's bad. I like Raheem too, and even I had to tweet something because I was like, dude, that's really bad. Like,
I think I tweeted, press the middle button on your controller to call a timeout. Because my mom, because I was watching that game. That was like last night at home before I came back to New York, and I was watching it in my room. And when that happened, I was screaming at the screen, call a timeout, call a timeout. And my mom, the next morning, she was like, who are you yelling at to call someone last night? I'm like, I'm trying to sleep. I'm like, you wouldn't get it, but I'm sorry. I'll be more quiet next time. And that is the cue. It's time for me to go home.
That's funny. You get those home. You had the video game lost too, the Madden loss or the NCAA loss. That one was pretty funny too. Oh, the other thing I got from last game is how many lefties the Falcons have on their team, which is, the dirty southpaws. Yeah. This team has Bijan, Penix, and Drake London are all lefties. That's interesting. I have a theory that there's pass catchers are more left-handed than not more than, but there's more lefties than there are than a normal population. I have no idea what the theory is behind, but that's my theory. I'm sticking with it. All right, that was fun. NFC South Bruja. I think the Falcons win. I don't know if they cover, but I think they win because they have to. They should. Chuba Hubbard's also out, which stinks. Of course, as I hype him up, but I think that might be protect him a little bit before the season ends. All right. We're going to take our last break, and then we'll get to the last couple games from Week 18. Next up, we have Chiefs at Broncos, and this is the slop watch for Week 18.
Warning. This is a slop watch.
I think we'll adjust that one this offseason or for next season. This could stay on the pod too. And I want to take suggestions on what the slop watch should be, like what that sound should be, because it should just be like it should really encapsulate what this segment it always is.
Dude, I had the dumbest dream a couple nights ago, where for some reason the intro to the podcast. I really don't know why my brain went here, but it was the Big Smoke order from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, where he's just ordering like 40 different cheeseburgers, and then we just got right into it. I was like, what the was that? I don't know, but
oh my god, wow! Thanks for jogging a memory from 20 years ago for me. I'm trying to remember the last time I played San Andreas, 2007. I'm like 08, 06, somewhere around there. Time. Oh my god, you just jogged my brain right there. Yeah. Oh, I put some hours into that game. I always hear our theme, the theme song to our show, and it reminds me of a little WCW wrestler named Vampiro. And it has the exact same exact vibe. Yeah, but I don't know. Give me the Vampiro. But anyways, we're in the slop watch. Chiefs Broncos. Chiefs are sitting their starters. We got Carson Wentz in this slop watch. Woo! But the Broncos can win or can clinch a playoff spot if they win. That's it for them. Or if the Dolphins lose or the Bengals lose. So they have options, but just win and they're in, especially against these backups. You better be doing this, especially if you want to be a playoff team. You got anything to watch in this game other than Broncos take care of business? Because that's kind of how my notes were.
Yeah, that's mostly it. And like the only other thing that I jotted down was mostly anecdotal. I've seen Chad Henne win 2 playoff games as a Chiefs quarterback. I know it's in relief duty when Mahomes has had one of those weird ankle injuries that he gets and makes him more powerful once he comes back from it. But I feel like, is winning a game with Carson Wentz really that much more offensive than winning a game with Chad Henne? I don't know. But the only problem is you don't have all your other starters in. The rest of them are sitting too. So they'll be a little harder than like a playoff game. But hey, if Chad Henne can win a playoff game, Carson Wentz could potentially win this game against the Broncos, which would give the Chiefs, the no good Chiefs, what are we going to do here? We're so worried about the Chiefs 16-1 season if they could pull that off.
16-1. Dude, I think Andy Reid loves when he gets the game plan for a backup quarterback. Like nothing he like enjoys more for some reason. It was like when when Malik Willis had to play for Jordan Love. And the Packers just went, let's do like a wing T offense. This is fun. Like they actually you could tell how much they loved it. This is an old memory, or an old memory. All memories are old. This is a memory I have of Donovan McNabb got hurt. And I want to say this was 2002. If it's either 02 or 04, because I just looked up the stats. And Coy Detmer had to start for the Eagles. Remember Coy Detmer? Wow. Ty Detmer's brother.
Yeah.
Coy Detmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he brought it. So it must be the game they won. And I think he got hurt in this game, but he went 19 of 28 in the game that I'm remembering, 2 touchdowns, had a 48% success rate, only took 1 sack. And I just remember that game for some reason, because I think Andy Reid, once he gets it back up, he's like, let's do some stuff. Like, let's do, and not that Mahomes or these quarterback, Donovan McNabb can't handle it, but I think he just wants to like show off some other creative juice. So we'll see what he's got with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has some talent. It's more about getting him pointed in the right direction and to stop trying some stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Andy Reid feeling it. Patrick Surtain could also put a nice little cherry on top. Defensive Player of the Year candidacy, even though he's the favorite right now. Had no idea he was the favorite.
I didn't know that either until you brought it up. Yeah,
I didn't either. I thought TJ Watt was the favorite. So that kind of took some luster on my pick.
you Steelers fans, you guys going to be okay if the TJ Watt doesn't get this one? Because it's usually a big deal when he doesn't win deep one,
big deal. Who wants pressure rates? Who cares about pressure rates? Look at sacks.
And I mean, I'm like with regards to TJ Watt, I am kind of there with them on that because Him specifically. He's unique.
Yeah.
He's doing the 2016 Vic Beasley year like every single year. Still pretty good. Still pretty good. But you said Coy Detmer just reminded me of like a Madden franchise that I had way back in the day, and way back in the day. And I remember McNabb on the file had gotten hurt, and we nuked Coy Detmer, just destroyed him. So my whole thing, my only thing was, I know your brother Ty for sure, but you, Coy, you're known for getting your ass beat on Madden.
I love his first name's Coy. His middle name's Dennis. Coy Dennis Detmer. Man, my brain's so wet because Ty Detmer went to BYU. Obviously, you sell the records, all that stuff. Yeah, Coy went to Colorado. I actually did not know that off the top of my head.
Actually, he went to BYU too.
I did too. I know they're from Texas, but I actually thought he went to BYU. Okay, so I found the game. It was 2002. It was a night game. That's why I remembered it. I remember being a Sunday night or Monday night game because I was watching in my basement when I was 12 or 13. It was against the 49ers. And he got knocked out in the game, but they won 38-17. I think the Niners were pretty good that year too, if I remember correctly. 7-4. 18-26, 227 yards. So I don't know. The Coy Detmer. We're bringing up Coy Detmer on week 18 of Football 301. That's how you know we maybe wrap up these bullet points.
Because he got his ass knocked out by Keith Brooken in Madden 04. I can tell you that. It's another Keith Brooken and Patrick Kearney, man. We were on his ass back then.
I'm loving this. Let's just keep bringing up some more of those two names. Who else was in this? We had Deuce Staley playing this game. Oh, yeah. AJ Feely stepped in for him. We had Jeff Garcia was the 49ers starter. Garrison Hurst. T.O. went for 13 catches on 19 targets, 166 yards. Ty Streets.
Wow.
J.J. Stokes. We got some real game. Barlow. Oh, man, we got some real names. Hugh Douglas, of course. All right. Well, we'll get on to the last game, wrap up this. Stone might kill us. All right. Week 18, the last game of our preview show. We have the other NFC South tilt. Bucks need this one to make the playoffs to win the division. The Saints are at the Bucks. The Bucks are almost 2 touchdown favorites, minus 13.5. Bucks win the NFC South. They win. And that's it, right? That's all they need.
That's all. If they win, that ends NFC.
That's it. Winning, they're in. They're hosting Spencer Rattler. What do you got for this game? I actually do have a stat for this game. I'm pretty excited to share, but I want to hear what you got.
Go ahead, because this was one of the 3 games. I did have a couple games or 3 games in the repulsive, horrible, no good, absolute slop.
I loved your section headings for each one.
It gets a little worse. Granddaddy of them all, Vikings-Lions. Games that matter, somewhat watchable. Steelers, Bengals, Panthers, Falcons, and then there's slop watch, Chiefs, Broncos. Now we are like beneath slop watch. So Bucks Saints, I got nothing here. I would expect the Bucks not to mess around in this one and score like 50 points and go to the playoffs.
This is more, so my little stat here is more about the Bucks defense and kind of I was just perusing stuff, getting ready for the playoffs. I have some assumptions of how this game will go, so I can maybe start looking at some Bucks stats to prep for the playoffs. They face a week schedule since their bye week. Their bye week was week 11, I believe, but since week 12, this defense has kind of come together a little bit. It's we're not playing murderer's row this past month. I think the Panthers were in there twice. I think the Giants were in there, but since week 12, they've had injuries on the back. Yeah. It's not the greatest slate, but a lot of positive performances. Their DBs have been banged up, and I think, and I'm talking to our guy Keegan Abdu, I want to bring his name up again because we were kind of like throwing notes back at each other. The Bucks are first in blitz rate since week 12, which isn't shocking. Todd Bowles, he's toned down a little, but he's always top 3, top 5, 46% of the time. So half the plays they are blitzing. Doesn't matter, they're down. First, second, third, fourth, they're blitzing. First in pressure rate over this time period. Second in explosive runs allowed, so second fewest. Second in EPA per play allowed. First in EPA per rush allowed. Second in yards per play allowed. They're only allowing 3.2 yards per rush over their past 6 games. That's a Vita Vea stat. But also, I just want to talk, their front's playing well. I think their defensive line's playing really well, and they do funky things. And I think Bowles is just throwing a whole bunch of stuff against the wall and trying to make it funky. And I think it's working against these lesser offenses. We'll see in the playoffs against potentially the Lions or somebody else. But why I want to bring this up is Spencer Rattler against the blitz. 39th in success rate out of 43 qualifying quarterbacks. 41st in EPA per dropback. He's only above Andy Dalton second mention of the show, and Deshaun Watson. The nasty man against the blitz this year, a negative 0.55 EPA per dropback. So every time a team blitzed Deshaun Watson this year, they got half a point. That's he has as much negative
like
EPA
his own
per drop
tier, like own tier
of everything.
Yeah,
Every stat I break down, because I always do 200 more pass attempts as my qualifier. I had to do 150 with Rattler, and he's bottom every stat. It's like bottom, and then there's a gap, and then it's like Levis, Bryce Young,
like
Anthony Richardson.
This is off track, but like, do you know how bad you have to be playing when you haven't played in like 10 weeks and you're still like at the bottom of total EPA, not EPA per play, just all accumulated.
The cumulative.
You're still there.
Yep.
That should even out some because you've been playing so long. That's embarrassing.
It's the worst trade in history, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're stuck with him for 2 more years.
Mm-hmm. It's the worst trade in history. I've been really racking my brain on it. It is just everything about it. Just the optics of it, the contract they paid him, what they gave up, what he's done to sink this team was built for these years. I mean, just look at everything. 2025 looks like they're running it back. Maybe they go down the Rodgers path or some retread or something, which is Kirk Cousins. But it's their whole offensive line is basically, they have to reset it after 2025. It's just, where do you go, Browns? That was good. Nice little side rail there. Make sure you just did a little pot shot on the end at the end of week 18.
There's one Browns thing, because if the Ravens win this game, they clinch the AFC North on Sunday. And the only thing, I actually have 2 things on this game. One, that I just found out like a few minutes ago, the Ravens are up to 20-point favorites. It was 17 when I checked about 3 hours ago, and I think it opened at like 15. So people are just
field goal in 3 hours.
Yeah, pounding money on the Ravens. This game does not matter within itself because they're going to destroy the Browns. But moving forward, I went back and looked at the Ravens defense, and I stopped after I cut it off like after the Bengals game they played on Thursday night, where Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow just went crazy, but Lamar had enough and they won by 1 point at the end. That was really like their last truly bad defensive performance. Since then, so since week 11, the Ravens defense, first in yards per play, first in points per drive at 1.48, first in EPA per drive, second EPA per play, first in EPA per dropback, second success rate, first and third down conversion rate, and second in sack rate, which was a big deal because their pass rush sucked at the start of the year. So, hey, man, they kind of did the thing again where they just slowly turn around. They haven't quite reached the peaks of last year. I don't think like even Roquan Smith is in like the space to do that again. But still, like this is a real deal Super Bowl contender. Just want to say that before.
Absolutely. Nope. All the defensive back moves have been huge. Whether it was Zach Orr or Dean Pease coming in, like whatever they did, they revamped that defense the last month. And it's what we talked about. It was just, I went from like, oh no, they're a good team with an awesome offense, and I'm scared about the defense, to like, no, I view them as the contender or, a top 3 team. Any way you shake it. I think they're just loaded for the playoffs. So great shout out again, because the Ravens are playing awesome ball. All right. That's it for week 18. You want to hear a mailbag question? Because we're going to get a mailbag question right now. You either submit a review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star review, we'll get you to the front of the line, or send an email to football301mailbag@yahoosports.com. We are going to get to, this one is from SR. Is there a book you can recommend for a non-player to learn strategies, schemes, and terminology? You provide great explanations. Thank you. But I often hear terms or concepts I'm unfamiliar with, having been too unathletic to play the game. Charles, do you have any books or any scheme terminology recommendation videos?
Well, I mean, yours is a much like exponentially more than mine, but like it's kind of the same thing where like I started playing football when I was 7. I started every year in high school, playing college. So like there's a lot that's just, you do something enough times, you just start to memorize stuff. But I do think like when I left school and I started trying to figure this out and just trying to learn more, because sometimes I was passed out in this film room if we weren't talking about something.
Yeah, funny how it works, man.
I know. I mean slumped sleeping. And I wasn't the only one either. That's
a universal.
But when I started trying to like just go back and fill in like some gaps, I actually thought the Smart Football books by Chris Brown, they're a really good place to start, because you get diagrams, You get overviews of like when some of the stuff was involved. And the most important part, it's written well. Because if you read some of these scheme books, it looks like it was written by a goddamn chat GPT, you know? So it's actually, you know, it's really good. You know, it's like, because I remember one of the, and it doesn't go too in depth. So like you can still go and learn on your own.
That's a great.
But like I remember one of the, he's great. I remember one of the first chapters in his first book, it was just like the basics of like Pete Carroll's defense. And then, you know, there's just enough strands for you to go pull and go find more on your own. So I would say start with those. If you're like on Amazon looking for, you know, you just type in a football scheme, don't do that. Start with Smart Football. It's digestible. It's stuff that even if you are just like a casual viewer, you can start to understand, and then you can pull strands from there.
No, that's a great recommendation, actually. Chris Brown is the GOAT, you know, the godfather of all this stuff. I mean, I even read his stuff when I was playing in college, man. And even when I was a GA at Pitt, like I learned about some new RPOs, like while reading his stuff when he had a website on that. And then he did some stuff with Grantland and everything. No, that's a great recommendation. I know I wanted you to answer this, and I told you guys this before the show that we might answer this. I'm actually one of the worst people to ask this question because I've been kind of spoiled my whole life. I've been around football, and a lot of the stuff I've learned is osmosis through my dad or coaches I've been around. So I never really kind of read like a Bill Walsh book, which I know a lot of people do recommend. And a lot of football books that I've been around, I've been like leadership books, you know, the Tony Dungy books and all that, which so I'm not trying to slouch anyone that reads those. I just don't read those. But I would say scheme stuff now, I think a lot has moved online. I think there's a lot of good breakdowns. You know, you Google something, there's so many blogs out there. And I just think people have gotten better at explaining this stuff, maybe not assuming that you do know everything. So you can find some 101 stuff and then get into deeper and deeper stuff as you kind of just seek it out. I know I just, mine's so much from osmosis, so much Twitter pages and my own stuff. And then also just looking online. So I wish I had a better one for you.
I got one more. There's a book I read maybe like 10 years ago. It's called Complete Linebacking by Lou Tepper. It's more in depth than like you know, the Chris Brown books, but this is also just looking at linebacker play, you know, formations, fronts, coverage responsibilities, but it's also still written like in a digestible-ish manner. And also the foreword for the book is by Khalil Mack, because Tepper was his defensive coordinator at college. So that's a good one to check it out too. Yeah.
Great call. We played against that team. I was at Pitt. And then we were like, who the hell is this 46 guy?
The Ohio State game. I will never forget that one.
Well, then the next year I went to the Falcons, and I was, you know, I get there like February, and I'm like breaking all these things down. And I just see Khalil Mack, then we didn't play him that next year. And then all of a sudden he was up for the draft. And then I was like, oh yeah, that Khalil Mack guy's pretty good. And then he had the Ohio State game, and then it went off on that. And it's just, you know, and I was like, I know who that guy is. Yeah, he was dominant against us. That was a great shot there.
Holy crap.
Oh God, I don't even say that. I know there was one collision low crossers I read. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was about the Jets era when Rex Ryan was there. That was by Nicholas Dawidoff. But yeah, I actually thought that was a pretty good book about the behind the scenes of like a football organization. There's some stuff in there. You can see some coded stuff too about some of the coaches not doing their job, but they have the job because of Rex Ryan, which I also thought was really interesting. But I thought that was a pretty good book about kind of behind the scenes of how an NFL team is run and how the personalities are, and just, you know, when it's not going well and how that can all break down. So if you're not even going to scheme, I thought that was an interesting book too, as someone that's kind of been on the inside. Thought they did.
Can't forget the quintessential book, The Art of War. You know.
Oh yeah, Sun Tzu. Coaches love that. Coaches love Sun Tzu. I quoted Sun Tzu on freaking Good Morning Football, and they made fun of me.
To play it to the stereotype a little too hard there.
Too hard. You're what you want? How about a business leader using it? What you guys need? Elevation. You know, you guys really need tactics of when to battle. All right, I think that's enough. Once we get into the Sun Tzu section. We're closing it out today. Keep sending those questions in, though. I wish I had better books for you. Maybe I'll try and think some, rack my brain. Maybe I'll come up with some more. But I actually do want to read some baseball books this year. I want to read the Ricky Henderson book that just came out. I want to read the Pete Rose book that just came out. So that's a sidebar. We're closing it out today, though. Charles and I will be back on Sunday. We'll be doing it after Lions-Vikings because that's the most relevant game. Might as well recap that one. We'll be doing the fifth quarter then, so make sure to check that out Sunday night into Monday morning. I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. Where can they find you, Charles?
You can find me Forverts, Twitter, Blue Sky. Talk about them dogs. Hopefully they get it done.
Kick off in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You
Well,
ready?
no. This is America, so give it 25.
Right. College football and soccer's like that too. They'll say, "Oh, kickoffs at 7:00," and then all of a sudden it's 7:40, and they're finally dropping the ball. That's why I like the NFL, man.
NFL, yeah. You get a Super Bowl time, they say kickoff at 6:37 p.m. and that ball is off the tee.
Once you realize how much of the NFL's growth came from TV, you realize that's why they're structured so well around TV. That's why they have to worry about blackout rules and everything, but it's a good thing. Really fun show, though. Thank you, Chuck, for joining me. Also, subscribe to us, follow us, rate us, like I said. Watch us on YouTube, on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Thanks to Brett and Stone behind the scenes for making us look and sound good. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy your weekend. See you guys on Sunday.